Hi, and welcome to Mayor's Moments. Usually it's Jim Larkin that says that. We're here with the superintendent of the Willoughby Six Schools, Steve Thompson. He is going to talk about the bond issue and the new look for the Willoughby Six Schools. So I thought it's only appropriate that I would support my new look as well. So, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
Thank
Appreciate it very much.
First of all, there's always confusion on what's the difference between a bond issue and a levy, and this is
Right.
not a levy.
Right. I remember it as simple as this. Bonds are for buildings, levies are for curriculum or operation of the school.
Right.
So passage of a bond issue, which is what we're seeking this November, is to replace buildings. It's bricks and mortar, cannot be used for salaries, et cetera, et cetera. It's not operational, strictly for buildings.
Right. In the city, it'd be the same way, but we don't call it PI. You call it PI for permanent improvement. We refer to it as capital improvements, but it's the same thing.
Same
and
thing,
we
same
can't.
thing. Interchangeable words, right? The money that's in our permanent improvement account cannot be used for anything other than expressly permanent improvements.
Well, then the big question, why? Why do you need this?
Well, that's a great question. It's the crux of why we're here, or why I'm here today, for sure. Came here in 2011. Came with the understanding and knowledge that the buildings in 2011 were in various states of disrepair. In fact, fell right on a Ohio Facilities Construction Commission report, which is a third party that comes in and assesses school buildings. Their assessment was that every single building should be torn down at a price tag of roughly $300 million, which would put us somewhere around 11 or so mills. Certainly not something that we could pass, so we've pared it down significantly from what the OFCC recommended. So we are here because our buildings need massive repairs. We need to increase safety and access to technology.
The other question that's come up, have you tried in any other ways to cut costs to repair or obtain facilities without building new ones?
We have. That's a great question as well. We've exercised a program called House Bill 264. It's been around for a long time, but it allows school districts, municipalities, to make repairs or replacements based on energy conservation through the state of Ohio. So we did House Bill 264 projects across the entire school district, which allowed us to cut our utility bills by about $900,000 a year. So that was pretty significant. Do some upgrades in terms of windows, lighting ballasts, those types of things. And then we've done a couple other, we had a roughly $23 million amount of money that was through construction bonds that we were able to capture from 2010, and we did our best to stretch that as far as we could. But the problem is, for example, we have $30 million in roof repairs that need to be done right now. $30 million. If you take a look at this photo, you can see this is this Willowick Middle School? You can see the roof damage that's here. And the next slide you're taking a look at is from Willoughby Middle School. You can see the damage that the roof has done on the interior of the school. So roofs are a massive problem without nearly the funds necessary to make those repairs.
The question comes up, how many high schools are you planning to build and why?
Well, we're planning to build 2 new high schools. So the overarching plan is a new North High School located exactly where North is, behind the current facility. So the new North will be constructed while the old North remains in use until we switch over in the fall of 2019 is when we anticipate moving into the new North High School. A new South High School right next to the current South High School. And why would we build a new South when we just renovated South? Because we're going to tear down Willoughby Middle School, move Willoughby Middle School students to South High School, which has been part of the plan all along. And then the third new construction project is a new Longfellow Elementary Just to put it in perspective, Longfellow was built right after World War II, before the Great Depression, well before right after World War I, excuse me,
right.
before the Great Depression and well before World War II. So that building will be built new on the same property. All the rest of the remaining buildings will be significantly renovated. The largest share of the renovation funds comes to Royal View and Willowick Middle School.
That's right, it should.
Well, it should, because those buildings, we have put a new roof on and started to make some upgrades in the facility, but we hope to replace the HVAC system, all the windows, abate all the floors, do general finishes, new doors, new lockers, redo the parking and exit and entrance into the facility. So we have plans that I think will significantly upgrade Willowick and Royal View.
We got a grant through our engineering firm, as did Willoughby and Eastlake, to look at, it's called Safe Ways to Schools, and we looked at that parking area, ingress, egress, and honestly, there was nothing we could do without tearing down houses or whatever. There's just, it's just too many people going into too small of a space.
Well, I think one of the things we are going to at least explore is the possibility of purchasing a home and coming out. We have that space where the football field is, the older football field, and some of that green space. I think there is a way, if we can just pop out of there, we could make a significant improvements to the traffic flow. That's going to be predicated on the ability to purchase a home, obviously working with the city to allow an egress and from that new, wherever that might pop out, depending on who might be willing to sell their home at fair market value.
I was just going to say that.
One of the questions that's come up at a lot of your meetings is why two high schools? Would it be more cost effective with one? I bristle at that because I think it's way too big, but just want to.
Well, I'll try to quickly answer that. For me personally, I was never in favor of one high school. And the reason being, you take the number of opportunities for kids and you cut it in half.
Oh, absolutely.
And our schools are already Division II large high schools. And if we combined and went to one high school, we'd be one of the largest high schools in the state of Ohio. And that really concerns me, that more kids fall through the cracks, more kids become unnoticed. It's a massive school where you don't even know who you graduated high school with. And I think that's a disadvantage to our students. But on top of that, we have the uniqueness of being a community that's divided into 7 separate communities. So it always begs the question, well, where are you going to build it? Well, we have 2 plots of land that could support one high school. One would be in Willoughby and one would be at Eastlake at the current locations. By the way, in terms of saving money, we would save about $10 million on the total construction, but operationally in that point moving forward, there's no real savings. You're not reducing number of teachers, you're not reducing the amount of food you have to purchase, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, you're probably increasing your cost on transportation to some extent. So it's not a cost, it's not this big boon of financial reward if we went into one high school. But beyond that, we surveyed the community and we found that 70% of the people oppose the idea of one high school. Loss of the Rangers, loss of the Rebels, whatever it might be. Of those 30% who did respond positively to one high school, we asked them, well, if it's built in Eastlake, how would you vote? About half the voters went off. Dropped you down to the next question, what if it's built in Willoughby? Half the numbers dropped off. So from polling data, about 85% of the people would oppose a one high school building, either Eastlake or Willoughby. So from the perspective of what's best for students, we don't believe it's best for students, and our community doesn't support it based on survey data.
How many high school kids are there in the district now?
We have about 13. Actually, North this year was the first time North's jumped back in front of South in terms of total size. South was at like 1302 or 03, and north is like 1342.
And so we have 2,600 kids in one high school.
One high school, and so far, the last 2 years, we've picked up student population. So, we see that here in Willowick, with many of the homes, as you know, being bought by younger families. Once again, we're seeing that across the district, and that's great. That's a positive growth sign for both the city and the school district. I just think it presents a lot of problems for us to look at the one high school concept.
As a former high school principal, I just imagine what lunch periods would be like.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it'd be 2,600 kids in one room. That's craziness. But you want to make the facilities a community resource. Why do you feel that's important?
Well, I think when you think of a school, you think, who's it for? And most people's initial response is, well, it's for students, it's for kids. And that, of course, is true. But we want to make the facility more of a resource for the entire community, and we can do it very cost effectively. So, for example, we hope to have library annexes at each building. It doesn't mean libraries are going away. It just gives people an opportunity that live in the neighborhood to a place where they can drop off books, pick up books that they ordered. There wouldn't be books there to on display, just a kiosk, if you will. Some computers where they could access the internet if they're in a position where they don't have internet access at home. So just a resource. A minute clinic through Lake Hospitals at each high school. Again, we know it'll be for our staff and our students, but just a great resource there, and also additionally moving out into the community. Yes, you can go to other facilities and they still exist, but if you want to go to a neighborhood facility right there, it's convenient and easily accessible. So again, changing the paradigm that schools are just for students and not for the community. So we want to open them up to the community, to the potential theater, to the access with our partners through the Y, making all of our facilities much more community friendly.
Let's talk about two things that would be brand new. One is the Performing Arts Center, and the other is the indoor pool. Why don't we start with the Performing Arts Center and see what your vision is for that? That's at North.
That's at North. Ideally, I'd like to be able to say that we're going to have a pool and a theater in both high schools, and we have those funds. But in reality, it's just not cost effective. So we're going to put the theater at North, the pool at South, and I've had people, and I know these are lightning rod issues. The theater is a lightning rod issue. It could be a lightning rod issue for some. You don't need a theater. The theater's extravagant. And I always ask people, well, how much money would be associated with that building that would make it extravagant in your taxes per year? Usually it's somewhere, let's say, $50 a year, $75 a year would seem extravagant. The cost is $2.71 per year for the average homeowner. So, and what would we do with the theater? Well, one, again, it's back to that community resource issue, trying to give Eastlake an opportunity to have that as a hub for theatrical performances outside of the school day. We also hope to put in a theater arts program, much like a welding program or our construction trades programs, where students that are really interested in performance, dance, singing, the technical side of theater would be able to go there for a half-day program in junior and senior year. And for those that are really passionate about it, want to pursue that as a career or a college major potentially. So that's a great opportunity for students. The pool in South, again, get the same thing, a lightning rod issue for some. I think most people don't know, we have 2 swim teams, pushing about 100 kids that swim. They swim at 8 o'clock at night at Cleveland State University, which we bus them to Cleveland State, swim, get on a bus back. I don't know exactly what time they get back, 10:30. At a cost of about $50,000 between transportation and pool rental.
So
Again, the pool is, the build out of the pool is just like the build out of the theater, a similar price tag, about $2.71 a year for our taxpayers for the pool. But a pool, the problem with a pool is not the build out. The problem is the legacy cost of the pool. And if we had that legacy cost, I couldn't sit before you and tell you that I would advocate for a pool. But through our partnership with the YMCA, when we need the pool, the YMCA does not. When they need it, we do not. So it's a synergistic way of cost effectively delivering a great resource to our community without being a burden for our taxpayers. $2.71 a year for the average taxpayer. They'll get that back in potential discounts if they choose to be a Y member, for example. So this is, again, a synergistic way of trying to make the buildings
Who's gonna own the pool?
we would own the pool and lease it back out to the Y on $1 a year, 75-year lease back to the YMCA, and they assume all operational costs.
And is the School of Fine Arts involved with the Performing Arts Center at North?
We will reach out to, they have been a partner of ours the last couple of years. We hope to continue and grow that partnership. That program would be run through Excel Tech. That's our consortium with other school districts to provide different programming for students their junior and senior year. So it would actually run through Excel Tech, but we hope to partner with the Fine Arts Association.
I think people need to understand in our community that the pool that's going in at South is their pool too.
Absolutely.
It's North High's pool. It just not on Stevens Boulevard.
That's correct. And all the North swimmers will go to South. Instead of trekking down to Cleveland State, they'll just come over to South. And conversely, all the South students have the same ownership of the theater as the North students and will come to North for their productions.
And just in Lillooet alone, our swim team is huge. The
Right.
kids program during the summer, we had 140 kids.
Right.
So we'll be pumping more and more kids into that program.
And you know, I don't want to play this more than what it is, but I think you would agree. What attracts people to Willowbrook? Well, the community, the school system, and the amenities that you offer as a community. That's why people move here. And same with the school district. The higher performing we are, the better conditioned our facilities are, the more amenities and opportunities that we can present to students, the more people that will want to come and
Absolutely.
live here.
That's why it affects property values.
Exactly.
That's what I've always said. I always look at it as schools are first, and then the city's parks and rec are the top two reasons.
Right.
And you would think, well, why not safety? Well, if you have good schools and good parks and recreation, safety will be there.
Safety takes
Because this is a community that cares about itself, so
Right.
that you would have that there. So,
Right, exactly.
I think the other thing that I find attractive is that not every kid plays sports. I know it sounds un-American to say that, but not everybody plays
That's right.
sports.
Right.
And to have I'm sure that you have a concert band,
We do.
concert band program at both schools. They'd be using that center, I would think.
Absolutely.
That you'd have theatrical performances, you would have, as you mentioned, you'd probably have choirs singing there.
Right.
That's got to be an awful big number of students.
It would be hundreds. By the time you added both bands together, the various choirs, because there's multiple choirs, there's show choirs, there's concert choirs, there's multiple choirs at both schools. Then both drama programs. For example, South is getting ready to put on a production. They have over 150 students involved in their drama productions. North has been doing more drama productions, and I believe they had over 50 students involved in their last drama production. So those things are gaining traction, and it's really important for not just athletes to have a place to showcase their talents, but all kids a venue to showcase their talents.
Absolutely. And your point is well taken too. A high school with 2,600 kids, you're still only going to have 90 kids dressing for the varsity football team.
And yet 22
That means
kids that'll
90 more
see.
kids that are gone.
Yeah, and it means 22 kids that are going to get to play, or there's 6 leads in the musical. Well, instead of 2 musicals, it's only 1 now.
Right.
With 2,600 kids competing for it, and I have a hard time reconciling that.
I makes a lot of sense to me. And my kids are out of high school, but my grandkids are all 5 of the little Bondies will be a royalty. Good luck with that. Delete my cell phone number.
Get it off speed dial.
That's right. One of the questions I was going to ask was about partnerships, which you pretty much answered that.
We have our partners are Lake Hospitals is a strong partner of ours, the YMCA, the library system are our main partners at this point, but we've certainly opened more.
One of the things that I think people are confused about with school finance, number one, it's confusing, and if you look at how schools are funded, even God looks down and says, man, I don't get it.
It's very complicated.
It is. But why don't you get more money from the state?
Well, in the late 90s, I think it was 97, the state of Ohio joined in a lawsuit against the tobacco companies. They were successful, and the state of Ohio received hundreds of millions of dollars from the lawsuit settlement. The state at that point decided to rebuild Ohio schools, start a program called Rebuild Ohio Schools. They created the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, which is operational today. And they listed every single school district, from the poorest school district to the wealthiest school district. And that it's not based on people's income, rather it's based on the total property valuation in a community. So that would include homes, it would include corporations, et cetera, et cetera. By that standard, Willoughby Eastlake is considered wealthy, which pushed us way down the list. And the further you go down the list, the longer you wait for your opportunity to take part in some state funding, but the share that you receive of that tobacco money gets less and less and less and less and less. And ours is at about 9%. So some might say, well, why don't you take the 9%? Well, first of all, our number's not up. But even if it were up, the OFCC requires what's called a third-party construction manager. It's 7% of your total project. So now you're down to 2%. Because the OFCC puts 1,000 regulations on top of regular construction projects, typically we see anywhere between 10 to 14% higher cost to build than if you built it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just simply not cost effective.
Doable.
It's just not doable. So we're stuck with having to fund it fully locally.
When I was a college dean and I taught a graduate course in school law, and we talked about school finance, I would use the SF3 forms, and I would pull up Willoughby Eastlake, Menors, and I also pull up Ashtabula area cities where I was working at the time. And our district in Ashtabula was about the same geographical size as Willoughby Eastlake, and their overall tax valuation was in the millions. Looks like a lot of money. And then you look at Willoughby Eastlake, it's in the billions.
Yes.
And I said to the graduate students who are all teachers that it's because Willoughby Eastlake is considered a wealthy district. And there were Willoughby Eastlake teachers in the class saying, "What? We have old books. Our kids aren't wealthy." And I said, it's because our overall tax evaluation is high. So the state of Ohio says, "Hey, Willoughby Eastlake, go raise your taxes."
That's right.
Go to the ballot.
That's right.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, from the state's perspective, the state's formula says we're rich.
That's right.
Yeah.
Go to the ballot and,
Yeah.
and raise your taxes.
That's right.
So let's see how rich you are as you try doing that.
Right.
So, one of the other questions that comes up, I've seen it a number of times, what's your plan that the buildings don't end up in disrepair?
That's a great question. I think one thing to keep in mind, that's sometimes I think we're a little overly critical of the condition that they're in terms of they are in obvious state of disrepair, but that the insinuation is that, well, somehow somebody didn't do what they should have done and that's why they are the way they are. 1923 Longfellow Elementary has had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students go through the door every single day. Now imagine 400 kids exiting in and out of doors, on the door hinges, on the on the door itself, that wear and tear every single day, multiple times, recess, back in school, out of school, etc. You don't have that in your house, right? So to compare, well, my house was built in 1957 and it's okay, versus a school, you're not comparing apples to apples in terms of use and volume that goes through the schools. Secondly, I think there was an effort to try to keep taxes as low as possible, and as a result, the funding's simply not there for repairs like it perhaps it should be. So how are we going to prevent that from happening in the future? Well, one thing, when the levy passes, we'll have every school buttoned up with heat, roofs, windows, et cetera, for the next 25 to 30 years. So our repairs will go drastically down, but still we have to invest back into our buildings. So we have what I think is the most unique, I believe the only school public school in the country that is running adult programming in the afternoons and evenings in our schools. For example, we have an adult nursing program. After all expenses last year, we cleared $250,000. We're going to expand our programs to welding, cosmetology, auto repair, auto collision, and expand even beyond there to where we are a great resource for the community and a revenue generator. We expect to generate over $1 million in revenue, and we're going to take that revenue coupled with our permanent improvement money you mentioned earlier at the top of the show, the PI money, and we're going to invest that back into building repairs from its inception, so that we don't find ourselves in this position.
So you just leave it build up in a PI account?
What we don't need, we're going to let it build up and build up and build up, so that at one point, when we need to do a $2.5 million roof repair replacement, we'll have the funds available.
Right.
So,
You're not being debt service.
right.
Makes so much sense. What about any cost overruns?
We are going, there's an option out there for public schools that allows us to go, it's called construction manager at risk. So we will hire the construction manager, they'll put their bids in for the total project not to exceed our total allocation of funds from the bond issue. And any cost overruns that would happen would be on the construction manager, so their firm. So they would have to eat those costs. So it's a unique opportunity that's available to public schools, and we're going to take that opportunity.
It just makes me crazy anytime we do the major construction we've done has been road repairs and road resurfacing, and every year there's cost overruns. They'll find something.
Right.
We just,
Every construction
315 is
project.
going to go over.
Right. Every construction project I've ever done, that's the case. So that's why we're going to take this route.
Yeah, it makes me crazy.
Yeah, I understand.
But then the big question, what's this going to cost us?
Well, that's a great question.
Is this going to raise taxes?
Yes, it will raise taxes. The millage is 3.99 mils, which will generate roughly $116 million. Cost the average home, it'll cost for $100,000 of value, $11.64 per month. So if you live in a $150,000 home, it's somewhere around $14, $15 a month. So while it's not an extraordinary amount of money, it is certainly an ask, and it does make an impact on people's lives and their homes, especially for those that are on tighter budgets, obviously. But I just want to implore that we've done everything we can to drive that cost down. The two buildings that we did purchase, like used cars, so to speak, we didn't talk about it, but we purchased two buildings and were able to close two other buildings that were in significant state of disrepair. One needed about $13 million in repairs, one over $30 million in repairs. But what that allowed us to do was to take our original bond issue, which our first numbers we were talking about were $150 million, and bring those down to $116 million, which drove down the millage. A picture that you're looking at right now, for example, is of the old Willoughby Tech Center, which we're currently using. And you can see from the photo the state of disrepair the building's in. It needs $30 million in repair. And then this next photo that you're looking at is water coming in at Longfellow Elementary. We've repaired that roof over and over and over again, but it keeps splitting, coming apart, how the building is settling, causing a lot of issues for us, like the sprained ankle that won't heal. It just won't stop.
Well,
And
one of the problems that we have throughout the country, and certainly in Willoughby, is that you build schools with flat roofs.
right,
And we gave up on that. I said, when we did the community building, when we built the activity center at Manry, I insisted that we have gable roofs for that very reason. And because they're cheap, and you're trying to build buildings and save as much money as you can, so you build flat roofs and then you pay for it in the long run.
yeah, that's absolutely true. It's a
So-
big part of those roofs are very, very expensive. And just like your roof at your home, it's a big investment to put it in. You have to do to protect the value of your property, but at the same time, it doesn't even, gives you no more curb appeal
No.
to fix that roof.
It doesn't. You're gonna go sell your house, you're not gonna get a dime more for it just because you got a new roof on it.
Right, exactly.
One of the questions people always have is why are school districts always on the ballot? And you might want to address the House Bill 920.
Yeah, the story really goes back to the 70s. And if you recall, for those of us that were alive in the 70s, remember the long gas lines. But the main problem at that point was inflation. Inflation at its height hit over 20%, which we're at somewhere around 2% today, to kind of put that in perspective. And everything, to include home values, on paper was rising exponentially. Not in reality, but on paper. So, horrible economic time, but a great time for public schools. Boon of cash. At that point, as your property values rose, so did your taxes. House Bill 920 was introduced in the late 70s, which House Bill 920 is still in effect today. And it says that whatever collection rate a levy passes at stays frozen at that in perpetuity forever. Well, imagine trying to run your home if your income was frozen forever. Eventually, that flat line of frozen revenue is, you're going to cross the axis with your costs. No matter how hard you try to keep costs down, eventually those two lines will cross. And that's what House Bill 920 has caused. Now, on average, we've been on the ballot every 3 or 4 years for new money over the course of Willoughby East Lake's history. If we can push out to 2019, 2020, which is what we're projecting, that would be the longest run in school history without coming back and asking for new money. So we've done some things that were difficult and hard to do to tighten up our budget, but we've done that. We did that in 2012, and we haven't been back on the ballot for new money since 2012. And again, don't anticipate until 2019 or 2020.
Having taught in the district and then later on knowing the district as a public official, I've always saw Willoughby East Lake as a very, cost-effective, thrifty. It's not extravagant. You watched every penny. Every superintendent's always done that, watching every penny. And I think that the teachers and the board, yourself and the administrators, are to be commended for doing such an excellent job with not a lot of resources.
You know, I would really encourage anyone watching this who doubts that they can Google fiscal year report. They can just Google that, and what that will take them to is an Ohio Department of Education document, and they can pick between 2010 to 2014 is the latest year. It shows all of our expenditures as they compare to the rest of Lake County, and it gives you 3 drop-down buttons, and you can select any school you would like to compare us to. It could be Mentor, it could be Wycliffe, it could be anywhere across the state. You can and lay them out side by side, and what you'll find is our expenditure per student, which is the bellwether dollar amount that you can look to determine school districts' financing. We spend about $9,800 per student. The county average is over $11,000, and many of our local school districts spend $12,000 and $13,000 per student. All across the entire document, you'll find that we're more cost effective than almost everyone has it in the county. In fact, we spend less per student today than we did just a few years ago. And that's mostly because we made some difficult choices, cut our benefits. Our benefits aren't as rich as they once were. Our staffing numbers are lower. Our teachers teach more periods. We have less administrators per students than any school in Lake County. And all that can be found on that benchmark fiscal year report.
What's in it for Willowick with this bond issue?
Well,
You started talking about that before.
right. Willowick has the largest share of renovation money is allocated to Royal View and Willowick. I really believe you will not recognize those schools when we're done renovating them. That renovation will start this coming spring, probably included in the fall. We hope, I'm knocking on wood here, Rich, because we need some help, but we're hoping that we'll be able to alleviate the construction or the traffic flow in and out of the facility as well. If we can get a break on a different egress in the facility. So and of course, all of our Willowick students are future Rangers, and they'll get to experience a brand new high school with technology that meets 21st century needs. And there's your hat. Yeah, the Willowick Future Rangers. And we're glad they're going orange and black at Willowick now. And we'll continue that theme.
Our city program's orange and black.
Yeah, that's great. Because we want to build that Ranger pride and that sense of community. And North High School is Willowick's high school. So they'll have a state-of-the-art high school to attend, significantly upgraded elementary and middle school that would include upgrades in safety and security, amenities, technology, all the things that students in Willowick deserve.
One other question, and it could be controversial, you might not want to answer this.
Okay.
We're filming this in late September.
Right.
North versus South. Who are you picking, and what do you think the score is going to be?
You know, since I've been here since 2011.
We're not going to edit this out.
You don't have to. Since I've been here since 2011, South has won each game. Been heavily favored going into that game.
It's got to stop.
And each game, and I believe South has won 12 straight. But the very interesting thing is, if you look at it historically, I believe they are 26 and 26 and 1. I believe is the.
That would surprise me.
Yeah, so it's very, there was a time when North dominated, and then there's been a time when South has dominated that series. I honestly think this is going to be a great game. North is 2 plays away from being 4-1.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
They play
Yeah.
with tremendous pride. Sean Dott's done a great job coaching those kids. Willowick kid, a North grad. I've seen more fire, more intensity, and more heart from North than years maybe, I don't know, but certainly in my tenure. And they have some great athletes. South, of course, has great athletes too. They got off to a rough start. They looked good last Friday, beating Brush 40-something to 21. So I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm excited. And you are invited to the game, and I'll get you those tickets.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
I think that concludes our program, and thanks for watching.